5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
I don't
fire.
want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flame in your heart.
World War II was the largest conflict in the history of warfare. Many famous battles like the Battle of the Bulge and the Siege of Stalingrad are well renowned to this day. Although these battles were important, largely unforgotten actions like the raids of the Norsk Hydro plant played an unmistakable part in deciding the outcome of the war. When the Norsk Raids were first planned, the Nazi Empire had conquered almost all of mainland Europe. But it was not the German dominance of the continent that the Norse planners feared most. Instead, it was the potential for the Nazis to obtain a weapon of unimaginable power. This potential came in the form of atomic energy. It could be used either as a form of power or as a weapon. For either goal, nuclear fusion was the key. In order to obtain nuclear fusion, large amounts of plutonium were required. The most common way of creating plutonium at the time was a process that utilized naturally occurring uranium and manufactured heavy water. On April 9, 1940, German troops invaded and quickly occupied Norway. As a result, the Germans now controlled the Norsk Hydro plant, one of the world's largest heavy water manufacturing facilities. Knowing the German nuclear research was far ahead of their own, the British created the Special Operations Executive and tasked them with knocking out the plant. On October 19, 1942, the SOE commenced Operation Grouse. SOE agents were dropped successfully into Norway. The commandos penetrated the plant's defenses and detonated demolition charges in the plant. Unfortunately, these did little damage and the commandos were forced to retreat before attempting again. Unwilling to accept failure, on November 19, 1942, the SOE made a second attempt, codenamed Operation Freshman. The raid was a complete disaster. The tow lines carrying the gliders full of commandos froze and snapped, causing the gliders to crash into the Norwegian coastline. Every commando either died in the crash or was executed by the Gestapo. Even worse, the Germans found plans among the wreckage detailing the planned raid. In response, they sent another 1,000 troops to the plant and added fortifications in its defense. Finally, on February 16, 1943, the SOE launched Operation Gunnerside. 6 new SOE troops parachuted into Norway and linked up with the members of the Grouse team who had spent the last 2 years in the Norwegian wilderness observing the plant. Luckily, the SOE commandos infiltrated the plant completely undetected by the Germans. The only person the team encountered was a Norwegian janitor who decided to help them. This time, the explosives critically damaged the plant. German scientists would be unable to get it working again until the end of the war. Every commando escaped the raid and either made their way back to England to rejoin the SOE or joined up with Norwegian resistance troops. The raids completely eliminated any chance of a Nazi atomic bomb. Without the heavy water, German scientists were stuck. Had the Germans succeeded in their nuclear program, they could have placed nuclear warheads on their V-2 rockets to create the world's first nuclear missiles almost 20 years before any other nation. This would have placed cities like Moscow and London in range of nuclear attack. Nuclear strikes on these cities would have resulted in the death of millions of people. By using their V-2 rockets, there would have been no warning to an attack, nor any chance to shoot down any incoming missile. The destruction of the Norsk plant and the cessation of the German nuclear program was on its own a monumental victory for the Allies. Had this been the only effect of the raids, then maybe it could be understandable why these raids would be overlooked. But this was just the first of many effects of the raids that would reverberate throughout the entire European theater of war. The first of these effects was felt at the very top of the German chain of command. Outraged by the failure at Norsk, Hitler ordered 300,000 troops and the bulk of the German surface fleet to Norway. This was a critical error, as these men could have been decisive on other fronts. For example, the German force defending Normandy during D-Day only consisted of 50,000 troops. The Allied invasion forces totaled 156,000. Even with this numerical advantage, the Allies were nearly repelled during the invasion. If only a fraction of the Norwegian garrison and their supplies had been there, the battle could have been very different. Halting the German nuclear program shut down other German weapons research as well. The Germans were planning on using irradiated materials to use in artillery shells and bombs. Even more crucially, stopping the German nuclear research prevented technology that would have allowed German U-boats to go almost undetected. This would have crippled the supply lines from the U.S. to England and would have prevented the U.S. from sending troop transports without massive losses. This would have also cut off supply lines to other Allied fronts such as North Africa and Asia. The Germans had almost blockaded England into starvation during World War I using their U-boats. They only stopped because of improved Allied detection methods. Methods that would have been rendered inefficient with nuclear-powered U-boats. All these effects stem from the destruction of the Norsk hydro plant. The impact that these handful of troops had on the war is truly astounding. Despite all this, the raids have been marginalized by many historians and are largely ignored. This is but one of many forgotten or untold actions that happened during the war. There are countless more, especially among the chaos of the Eastern Front, where 9 million Soviets died fighting the Nazis. It is vital for our understanding of the history of the war that we do not ignore the Norsk Raids and other actions like it. Doing so would devalue the sacrifices of the brave men who gave everything to win the war.
I just want to start a flame in your heart, in my